Hi, everybody. I'm Wendy Murdoch, and this is Webinars with Wendy. I've been doing a series of webinars during the pandemic to visit with my friends, learn something, and just kind of have a nice respite from the day-to-day life that's going on. I'm so fortunate that I'm able to be at home during this time, and so Zoom has provided me with an excellent avenue to talk to a lot of people that I know and miss. Today, my guest is Carrie Anderson from Costa Rica, and of course, last year I was at her place in February. Right? It was February. We had 3 retreats, and we've done retreats down there for the past couple of years. Of course, in 2021, we will not be doing a retreat due to COVID, but this way I get to visit with Carrie through Zoom. So welcome, Carrie. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. I'm so ecstatic to be here, missing you so much. We really always enjoy our time here. We spend lots of time together when you're here.
I know we do. It's like intensive, and it's problem solving. We have a great time. We have a really great time. So Carrie, and I'm just checking. I think somebody else is. Nope, we're good. Okay, so Carrie, you're obviously an expat. So why don't you tell us how you wound up in Costa Rica?
Oh boy. Okay. Well, it was a year trip. So basically, you know, I needed to get out. I wanted to experience living in another country, and I wanted to work on my Spanish. And I planned to just move for a year. And I ended up coming to Nosara, which is on the Pacific side in Costa Rica, a little town here. Found a job teaching 3 young boys. And at the time there was no school here, so I was their private tutor, and met my husband, current husband, only husband. Fantastic husband, and my first horse, not in that order. I think it was the horse first.
I think it was the horse first. I think you told me that. Yeah.
The horse first. And once, priorities for sure. You know, fell in love with Costa Rica, fell in love with the man, and fell in love with the horses here as well. They're fantastic animals, the criollos that live here. They're just hardy, they're bomb-proof, I call it, well, that's how we named our business, Playa Ponies. They're horses, but they, you know, I was so used to the big warm bloods and thoroughbreds from the States that these guys were just little ponies to me. So, yeah, but long story short, I didn't ever go home. Got married, I have 2 little girls, and 30 horses later, plus, although several of those are boarded horses, I think we are at around 17 horses of our own right now. So,
oh, wow.
And many dogs, lots of cats, chickens.
And so you're part of Equisol, and just kind of to briefly tell people, because Equisol is our partner in Costa Rica when we do the retreats for the Effortless Rider course.
Yes. So Heidi Blackman is my business partner with Equisol. And basically Equisol started with sort of my dream of wanting people to really experience Costa Rica for a longer period of time. We do horseback riding tours here, and we just had so many wonderful people, and I love our horses so much that I wanted people to be able to explore Costa Rica, and some of the other, you know, combine the expertise of Heidi, which is in the yoga field, and we found so many overlapping. So I used to take classes from Heidi, yoga classes, and she takes riding lessons from me. And it was very interesting how the language was so similar, or we found just a different way to communicate that we thought was very interesting. And we thought, what a wonderful experience. Let people come down for a week, experience this yoga, experience this beautiful country, the beach, the jungle, the horses. and have a fabulous time meeting new people. And that's how we got you.
Yeah, well, that's how we met. So I did my Effortless Rider online course with Callie King with CRK Training. And then Callie and I had heard about Equisol through someone who used to work for me. And I told Callie about it, and we were like, well, that'd be kind of cool to have like a retreat as part of our Effortless Rider course. So Callie got in touch with Heidi, and our first one was, I don't know, 2 years ago. It feels like a lot longer, but I think it was only 2018.
Was it?
Yeah, I think it was 18 because it was when I had my surgery. And so we went down, and we've done several retreats now, and we've done back-to-back retreats. So we got to know Heidi and Carrie really, really well. And of course, Heidi's yoga teaching and my riding instruction really fit together really well. We both did online courses with Callie, which was CRK Training, and now she's turned it into something called Horse Class. So if you're curious about the online courses that we've done, just check out Horse Class. And I think now you can sign up for those courses anytime instead of kind of having limited openings. So go check out Horse Class, and you'll see Heidi, and you'll see me there. And so that was really fun. We had a lot of things in common. And of course, when I went down, I introduced Carrie to Surefoot and brought my bag of pads with me, and we started working with her horses. And then of course, Carrie kept the pads and has been working ever since with Surefoot. So it's been, yeah, I think it's been like two years. It feels like so much longer that we've known each other, but I think it's been like 2 years. And I still use some of the footage that I filmed down at your place as examples. Oreo yawning on the pads, that's one of my favorite photos. And then Heidi's Criollo, I keep forgetting his name. Who's Heidi's gray horse? Uh-oh, have you lost me?
Just for a sec, I'm back.
Okay, great. What's Heidi's gray horse's name?
Oh, Frisco.
Frisco. So he's in just about every presentation that I do because he sways on the pads like crazy. He just absolutely loves them. And you would think that he's the calmest horse on the planet, but he's really a very hot horse. When you see him on the Surefoot pads, he's totally chill. He's like one of my models for Surefoot. But you've been working with all of your horses now using the pads, right?
Yes, we have. You know, it was really interesting to me the first time I saw a horse in your first retreat here get on the Surefoot pads. And it made me kind of think of how I feel after a yoga session with Heidi. I mean, they just completely melt. And then after I rode, when I was on a horse that had been on Surefoot pads, and I got to feel their body and that sway that happens, and then the awareness afterwards, it was, I mean, I still struggle, Wendy, with telling people what Surefoot is. I don't know. Do you have?
Well, no, I, it's like, I keep trying to find a good way to describe it. And it's not simple because you see so many different effects. And I think that's one of the things that, if you want to talk about parasympathetic, rest and digest versus anxiety, we see that with Surefoot. If you want to talk about rehabilitation, like proprioceptive, where you are in space rehab, we see that with Surefoot. If you want to talk about improved movement, we see that. If you want to talk about calming, like for the farrier. So there's so many aspects of Surefoot that it's difficult. It is difficult to describe. It's because you're trying to describe an experience, and there aren't good words to describe experiences. And so, we try hard. We try to come up with the words.
Yes, one of my boarders actually yesterday, he said, well, it's just horse magic. It's just magic. But we have actually been using Surefoot as a training technique and as treatments. One of the ways we've been using it is in the scary corner. So my scary corner is a little different than the scary corner than I think most people imagine in the States in their arenas. We actually have a lot of the bamboo scary corner. And our arena is actually on a road, like road frontage, but we have a big hibiscus bushes that, if you can imagine, reach probably 10 feet tall. And so the horses, a lot of times there'll be bicycles or cars that pull in, or rattling, or the noises that happen in the bamboo. And the horses don't see things as well on the road, and so of course they spook as they go past there. And the scary corner changes because it's kind of near the parking. So we have one horse that's off the track thoroughbred. He's new. You don't know him, Wendy. His name's Ryo, and he's actually a client's horse. And he was, I would say, we couldn't get him near the scary corner probably at least 10 meters. And so I would set up the Surefoot pads and just start to move him meter by meter closer, and have him on the Surefoot pads at the end of every session, every lesson. And now it doesn't exist to him at all.
So how, like, from the first time you started with Surefoot with that horse to now, how long has that taken you?
He got better within 2 sessions.
Oh, awesome. So it was rather quick.
It was very quick. Now we have another, he's been startled in the cross ties. And so we're starting him there now with the Surefoot. But it was 2 sessions with the Surefoot to where his owner noticed a difference. And and actually now we continued doing it for several weeks, but after 2 sessions, he was fine. And we use it also for him because he has some major podiatry issues. So he has very thin soles. When we got him, we started off with almost a negative palmar angle. He had a really aggressive sort of corrective shoeing that took place that ended up setting him back for quite a while. And the Surefoot made a huge difference in his life. Just moving off differently, relaxing. And actually, it was funny, his owner noticed we have in the wash stall the big foam rubber pad mats. And after using the Surefoot, he would go to the very edge of the mat and stand with his heels high and toes down. Like, he sort of figured it out. He's like, this I like, so just very interesting. Watching how, half a second on the pad can sort of transform a horse.
It is so amazing. And it's so, like, how short a period of time, like 2 sessions to take a horse from a scary corner to a non-scary corner. And it's really hard sometimes for people to believe that this actually happens. I mean, when you're first hearing about Surefoot, as you know, people think, what is this crazy stuff? And this is just another snake oil, and this can't be real. And, but it is. And it's, I really wish we could understand exactly how it does this. This is kind of like the #1 question that is yet to be answered. And one of the reasons why I started doing these webinars, because I was trying to come up with an answer of how is Surefoot working. And the more people I talk to, the more I realize it's working through a number of systems. It's not just a single system, because the hoof is a sensory organ, and there's fascia, there's receptors, there's sensors, there's blood flow. There's so many different things happening in that foot that it's hard to isolate exactly. You can't isolate it to one thing. But Carrie, what I always find so fascinating is this, like, when you take the horses on the beach, you don't see that same kind of response, even though the beach is soft and the sand is soft. It is unique to these magic pads. I would love to understand it more. And maybe someday we'll have some research that really helps explain it. But the beauty is you don't have to know everything about how it's working. You just need to know that it can work. And this is where I think some of the most profound things that I've seen were at your place during the retreats. The one horse that I always talk about is Jen's gray horse, the one that Tonine and Jen. What's that horse's name?
Yeah, Colosso.
Colosso, yeah. And so we brought him into the round pen for me to do a Surefoot demonstration, and he literally only drew his toe, just rubbed his toe over the half physio pad and put his foot down and then yawned like crazy. He didn't even actually even stand on it. And now I haven't seen another horse do that, just drag their toe over it and then yawn like crazy. But, you know, fortunately I got that on film, and it's one of the things that I find so fascinating. Such little input can make such a huge difference. And I think that's one of the things that we're so used to thinking, that you have to do something over and over again, or you have to keep repeating, or it's, you know, you got to, you know, it can't happen in one session. That Surefoot kind of breaks all those rules. I've seen incredible changes, like with your horses, in as little as one session, and this horse with 2 sessions to turn the scary corner into the not scary corner. It's really, I guess it's why I'm still out here doing this.
Yeah, and I have to say, another thing that kind of, I had brought the pads out again the other day in a lesson with Heidi and her big boy Lucas, and we were gonna put him on the pads at the end of the session because he also has a problem with the scary corner, and so we were gonna put him on the pads, and I had them out there, and we were working on lead changes. And so I had set up some poles across the diagonal line, and he was nailing it in one direction, but the other direction, you could see that he just quite couldn't, you know, he couldn't get it, but he knew he was supposed to, you know, what he was supposed to do. And then actually he would pick up the lead, you know, when going the wrong direction, kind of as if to show us. He was like, this is what you want, right? But he couldn't do it in the moment. And so I thought, you know what, let's put him on the pads and see, because I know that they have that, and I felt it myself. There's this awareness that happens in their body once they've been on the pads, and sort of, like you said, a new awareness of and understanding of how their body's moving in space. And so we put him on the pads, and he wasn't on for very long. He went on, and then he got off, and I said, okay, take him over, and he nailed it first time.
Wow.
So it was very interesting.
You know, and I've had that same experience, and it's so fascinating that when we can just drop their level of tension, right? How they already know what we want. And so often we think that they're not understanding, that they don't know what we want, but it's really the tension that prevents them from doing it. And I've had that exact same experience with several horses now. But the thing that you're telling me about Lucas that's so cool is that you're working on flying changes, because his canter was really problematic when I was there. So that's really cool. He's come a long way.
Zero, like he is a dream horse now.
Wow.
Yeah, he is beautiful. His canter is amazing. He does now like all walk to canter transitions pretty easily.
Wow.
Yeah. So.
Yes, because when I was there, he was kicking out at the canter. She couldn't even, remember that? She couldn't even canter him. So I'm sure that there's been many other things that Heidi's worked with him besides Surefoot. But, you know, and that's the thing, that you have to look at the whole horse. You have to address the whole horse. Surefoot's not going to solve all of your problems, but it has a lot of applications. And I think that that's what we're trying to say here, is that in training, so often riders and trainers get stuck on a thought, and they just kind of grind on it. If you've ever watched a riding lesson where the instructor's just yelling at the student to, you know, more, and it's just dissolving into a puddle because everybody's stressed. And if we can just stop in that moment and offer a Surefoot pad, what I've seen, and just like you've seen, is that suddenly it's like, wait a second, the horse actually does understand. It's just that the anxiety is preventing him from being able to show us that. And to yell at them louder or to yell at the student more doesn't make the situation better. It just increases the tension level and causes greater problems, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So who else have you been working with Surefoot? Because you told me there's...
I do have an interesting case. So this guy, you know him, it's Ed. Do you remember Ed?
Ed. I remember the name. Tell me what he looks like.
Chestnut. He had kind of the shaved look going on. And he was a horse that we rented. I don't know if you remember that. We rented him, and then I ended up buying him. Of course. And he's like just, you know, stocky quarter horse, super cute chestnut. But he is a head shaker. And so he, you know, we have done everything with this horse. He's not at the extreme level. I would say he's, you know, out of a 10, he's probably like a 4 or a 5. And it's mostly provoked when he's in like trotting or cantering. So at the walk, he's pretty good, but that's something to do with the movement and the trot and the canter. He's had his vision checked, he's had his teeth checked, he's had acupuncture, he's had chiropractic care. We've ridden him with the bitless bridle, we've ridden him in a bitted bridle, we've ridden him, I rode him with a neck strap one time, just the neck strap, just to see if it had anything to do with the, you know, the rider. And so I put him on the pads several times. The first time I put him on the pads, I noticed a big difference. I noticed that he wasn't doing the head shaking as much. The second time I put him on the pads, it went more over the top. Like he was head shaking every stride. And now he's sort of back to normal right now. We do have a treatment that was recommended through our veterinarian. We have a really amazing veterinarian vet that's coming once a month, and we're just so blessed to have him because, as you know, Costa Rica, where we are, is very rural, and it's hard to get good vet care, but he's an amazing doctor, and he comes and he's working with this case, and he's very interested in the case as well. So I'm planning to take some clinical data, and I want to sort of check each of the things as we're applying them, and see what makes the most improvement, because I do think I want to use the Surefoot and continue to use the Surefoot with him, but we're going to also start another treatment that involves like a hormonal treatment as well.
So that's interesting that you thought made it worse.
Yes. Yeah, I don't know if it was, you know, and this is the thing, and this is where we have to be, there's so many things that affect the head shaking. You know, it's a very bizarre thing that they do, and I put tape on the nose.
Yeah, no, like there's all kinds of ideas out there, as long as they're, you know, not invasive. It's
right, exactly. So we did that, and actually that seemed to improve it. We have a fly mask for him that has the nose piece, and he does pretty well with that. He seems also to be affected by the light, and we thought perhaps he had some problems with his vision. We still may have an optometrist come and take a look at him, just because one of the vets noticed a little bit on the side where he seems the most bothered, which is his left side, that he maybe has a little bit of reduced vision in that eye.
Out of curiosity, has your vet x-rayed his neck, the base of the C6? Yeah, I'll talk to you about that.
Okay. Yeah, he did an infiltration in his neck.
Oh, and what did that come?
Yeah, chiropractic treatment. So he did have and had acupuncture also in that area as well. But he's very, you know, he does the straight up and down head tossing, nosing, snorting, and you know, it's like as if a fly is, you know, constantly landing on his face, and he's, you know, just kind of does that sort of thing, straight up and down. But I have hope for him. He's a fantastic personality, you know, and I want to start to take some filming, Surefoot, and just film, you know, 5 minutes of riding time, and then I'm going to mark how many times he does the head tossing.
Yes, Michelle's just a message that she has a head shaker, and that's why she got Surefoot pads, and she's found it's helped along with other treatment. And I do know that Pam Eckelberger has a head shaker, and she uses the full physio pad, and this horse will stand on it, and it's diminished quite a bit. So, you know, head shaking is one of those, it's a syndrome and can have many causes. And so that's one of the tricky things with some of these issues, is that that the expression of the issue is the same, but the causes can be different. And so, but it's really cool that you're going to experiment and study that. I'm really curious to know how things turn out with that. Because it's, you know, I get questions all the time. Like I've just recently, somebody asked me if Surefoot helps horses with string halt. And what I can say is we have seen, I know of at least one case where Surefoot helped with string halt. Apparently they're saying now that string halt's a neurological problem, as I understand it. And so it may be that it just helps enough that the horse can manage. But some of the things that we see with horses are beyond the scope of what Surefoot can solve. Yeah. But Surefoot can certainly alleviate discomfort, alleviate some symptoms, and hopefully lead you to finding solutions. I mean, that's one of the things that, you know, the fact that the horse got worse really makes me curious. It makes me think of the webinar I did with Sharon May Davis the other day. If you haven't watched that one, yeah, I highly recommend maybe you go watch that one. She's talking about ECV, equine complex, equine. Anyway, it's where there's a malformation in the vertebrae at C6, C7.
Okay.
And it can affect the limbs as well, because when you describe that he's fine at the walk, but then at the trot and the canter, you start to see this. That's kind of specific. Yes. So it just makes me wonder if he's okay at the base of his neck, being a quarter horse. But you also use Surefoot with your kids, right? When the kids and the ponies ride?
Well, you know, we use the pads to do our little trail. We set up the obstacle trail also. But yes, you know, I think it's great. I love having the kids stand on it. It's very calming. I stand on it for myself. I do. I'm on my feet all day long. I start at 7 and sometimes 7 to 7. And when I have the Surefoot pads out there, I'm on them myself for sure. It definitely helps bring awareness even, and just to my, you know, how I'm standing. If I go stand on a pad, it definitely, you know, makes me have just an idea of how I'm holding myself, my posture. And a new awareness. And then I love to experiment with heels high and heels low and all of the things. But yes, I definitely like to use the pads on a regular basis and in the lessons. And yeah, and I'm curious now after that with Heidi to start using the pads when we may have some, you know, it happens on a regular basis where we're teaching something and the horse, and it just that moment of time and relaxation, and then to start again to use it as a training technique and as positive reinforcement, you know, going into the scary corners and
right. And that's
at the end of the level.
The positive reinforcement's really fascinating, and I've seen this so many times that you know, it wasn't the original intent with Surefoot, but it's certainly a way in which you can use the pads. And I can think of a number of horses where we just started out with the more traditional bringing awareness and comfort and letting the horse self-explore and being able to move more freely. But when you have horses that, like, I can think of two very clear examples. I had a Morgan that had been an Amish driving pony. And they drive with an overcheck, meaning that there's a check line going from the withers from the harness up to the head to keep the head up. And often, not only are they checked up, but they're checked to one side because they're driving them on roads in traffic, and you have to make sure that they're not looking into the traffic. So they'll check them up and often to one side. And this was a lovely little Morgan that my friend rescued and was just her pasture horse until her main horse had an injury. And then of course Blue became her primary horse. And she brought her to me for Surefoot, and just this was a really stoic, very high-headed Morgan, very anxious about everything. And when she trotted with a really erratic, high-stepping and pounding. You could hear this horse. She was only maybe 14 hands and maybe 800 pounds, but you could hear her pounding all the way around the arena because she was hitting the ground so hard. And so, and I only used the hard pads with her because she couldn't handle too much give. And I think it's important for people to recognize that some horses need more stability, that if you go too soft too soon, you can actually, they don't know how to handle it. They basically don't know how to deal with that much movement. So, but after she was on the pads for a little while, I set up a circle, and I would have Hyla walk that circle, the owner, and every time she'd get to a pad, she'd stop, and I'd go over and I'd put the foot on a pad. And so pretty soon she was walking over to the next pad and putting her head down because she was anticipating. And then pretty soon she was keeping her head down as she walked the circle because she knew that the pad was coming. And then of course, at that point, I don't put her on a pad every time, right? It might be every other pad. So once they realize that there's something in it for them, then if you don't reward it every single time, they try harder. It's just like us, you know, if we get rewarded every time, we're like, yeah, I'm going to get my reward, so I don't have to put much effort. But that intermittent reward, once they know a reward is coming, is a really handy thing. And we did this several times with her in more than one lesson, but it really made a difference because without trying to make her put her head down, she was putting her head down because she was looking for the pad and interested in the pad. And so she'd put her head down and walk over to the next one. And we had what we wanted, neck down, so her back could come up without having to impose that idea on her. And I'm sure you've seen this, Carrie, how it can be so helpful to elicit the kind of response we're looking for, but in a way that's not really training. You know, the horses are curious and they become interested. So they're sort of motivated, I guess, is the way to think of it.
Yeah, it gives them the space.
Yeah.
It gives them the space to explore, and like you said, a pause. It gives you a pause button. And I really think for us here, managing stress. I know that you've met several of the horses that have had the extreme sort of abusive training. And this, you know, it's not just relative to Costa Rica, but we do have several, horses here that have been trained in what we call this tope style training. So it's this really sort of high stepping. For some of the horses, it's very unnatural. So they'll use sort of chains to get the horses to lift their legs really high. And in order to produce this sort of, which I guess some people would call like a piaffe, they don't really train it. They sort of, you know, cause the horse a lot of stress. They put them in like a chute, and we'll put the chains on them and put the really harsh bit on and get them really going. And so the horses start to learn this thing, and they just move their feet and pick their feet up really high. And so anytime they start to feel that stress, or that, it'll start to provoke that behavior. So we've definitely used the Surefoot on several of our cases that are kind of rescues, and using it to manage stress for sure. I mean, Heidi's horse, as you know.
So I found the video of Heidi's horse because somebody just put in the chat that they didn't realize that you could do Surefoot under saddle. And absolutely. Now, I always tell people, make sure the horse is okay with the pads before you have a rider on, right? But one of the reasons for doing Surefoot with the rider on is to provide an opportunity for the horse to have a different experience with the rider, and for the rider to experience the horse in a different way, so that we break the habits that are environmental. So what I mean by that is, so often, you know, if a horse has had a bad fitting saddle, or an arena where they were, you know, it was rather harsh on them, then they go into those environments anticipating that, and so the anxiety is already up. And you can use Surefoot in any environment, but particularly once they know the pads in an environment where their stress levels might rise, to drop them back down again. So because it's portable, it's so easy to take your pads with you. We have people that take them to the horse shows and, you know, to the trailhead. And what'd you say?
Oh, you can take them to the horse shows. I
Yeah.
mean, there's no doping.
Exactly.
No, this is the best thing. Take them to the horse shows. Oh, I mean, we actually need to do that. You just triggered that in my brain. I need to take the Surefoot pads we have with Heidi's horse, Frisco. He has a couple of places where he gets really triggered on the trail, and we absolutely need to do that.
Yep. So I'm going to show a video of Frisco, and you'll recall this. This is one of my. I show this all the time because it's such a great piece of film. And how do I get rid of the? Hang on a second. I got to figure out how to get rid of the. Why do I have that at the bottom? I don't usually have that because we've cut off the top as a result. Hang on. Let me see if I can sort this out.
Jungle, beautiful jungle.
I gotta stop share for a second and see if I can get this to work right. I don't know why it's got that at the bottom. Go back, come on. Now it's frozen. Okay, keep talking while I fix my photos, which are totally stuck. Like my whole screen's stuck right now. I can't get anywhere. Keep talking. Oh, there we go. I got to quit photos and see if I can get out of this screen because I can't see you anymore.
Oh no, I can see you.
Oh, good. So like I said, keep talking while I try to fix this problem. My screen did something really weird. This is such a great piece of film, but I can't even get back to, I'm trying to get back to Zoom and I can't. So I can't even see you, Carrie.
Oh no. Where are you, Wendy?
Well, I'm here. NEM, I'm here. It's like, but why is my are you seeing my screen or are you seeing me?
But it's no, I see you. I see you working hard there.
Way less.
Hang on.
Swing, although it's starting to increase.
What are you seeing?
I see you.
Oh, good.
I see you and your and me.
So my screen share, you see me leaning into my computer trying to fix this. My screen share is suddenly not working and I'm stuck. I can't get out of screen share. So I can't see you. So we're just going to keep talking, okay? And then I don't know how I'll solve it at the end because at some point I have to get out of, any chance you can unshare my screen if you go to Zoom where it says share screen, and can you unshare my screen for me? Because I can't get out of it. But anyway, never mind. We'll just keep talking and then somehow I'll solve this at the end. But I wanted to show you a video of Frisco on the pads because he swayed so much and he had a rider on his back. And what I tell riders to do, it's not an easy job when you have when you're sitting on a horse and someone puts a pad underneath their foot. The role of the rider is to sit as quietly as possible because if you even move your hands or go to pet your horse, you change your balance, and so then that can disturb the horse. So you sit as quietly as possible and the horses will sway, they'll sigh, they'll drop their necks, they might step off, which is totally fine, and you just let them go for a walk. But the really, really cool thing about doing this mounted is that the rider's perception of the horse changes. Once you feel that horse moving in a different way, you can't keep the belief system that my horse, oh, he always, or he's just doing that to me, or he's, you know, you start to realize that they're dealing with balance, and that how that foot meets the ground is going to determine the quality of the balance the horse has under the weight of a rider. And Carrie, you've been on horses when we've done Surefoot. So why don't you tell people what you've felt?
Yeah, exactly. We, let's see, I definitely was on Lincoln one time.
Oh, yeah.
Big warm blood. And we put him on Surefoot, and I think I had to, at some point, we had to take him off because he was loving it. But yes, it almost can be a little bit like walking through the waves at the beach where you feel this undulation that's happening, and it can almost make you a little seasick when you're up there. You feel the rib cage sway, everything relaxes, all the muscles relax, and yeah, you just want to sit very quietly and sort of let it roll through you, right? And then the first few steps off of the Surefoot pads just feel so different. There's a new sort of, I guess, relationship, like you said, to the ground, to the space, to the arena, and the movement feels different. And going forward from there, and continuing, doing what we've been doing, if we're doing trot circles or doing something, walking or just walking, there is a new understanding, and the horses have this, it almost feels deliberate in a sense.
It
the one
does.
time that
Yeah.
it feels like there's something there that's deliberate in the movement. So it's very interesting. It's very interesting to experience. And like you said, it's undeniable.
Yep. I think deliberate is a great way to describe it, because you literally feel them like thinking about where they're putting each foot.
Yeah.
Okay. I've got things fixed now. If I can just find this video, I'll show you this video, because I've gotten my screen to undo what it was doing. I just have to figure out, okay, there's Costa Rica. That's all right. Keep going and I will find this video.
Do you remember Artemis?
I remember the name.
The Appaloosa.
Oh, leopard. Yeah.
Yes. I remember that. I mean, it was incredible with her, watching you with her. And I think that experience for our retreat guests was very powerful to see, because she gave us some very interesting behaviors.
Well, she was not happy. Let's put it that way.
She was very stressed. And so they got to see her for the first time with the pads, and how quickly, I mean, it was immediate, right? Her behavior change, her relaxation, her interest in you also, and her comfort level with you, being with her and wanting to follow you around, and showing you all of her buttons.
Yep. And it's so important that you're not forcing the horses to stand on the pads. And that's what they recognize. And, the webinars that I've had this week with Andrea Wadey and with Shelley Whitehouse, it's so interesting, because it's this idea of providing space and giving them a choice, and not just saying that they have to do this. And, that's so, we tend to not even realize how much we're demanding of our horses, and not giving them an opportunity to say, no, like with Surefoot, no, I don't want to stand on the pads. And it's totally fine, because we want them to be engaged in the process and not feel like it's another thing that's forced upon them. And they so quickly recognize that they have a choice. And I think that's one of the magic parts about it.
Yeah. Do you recommend, like, for the first time on the Surefoot pads, an amount of time that I have noticed, and that's hard to overcome too, is that you want them to have this experience, you want them to get on the pads, but that one horse that's off the track thoroughbred that we had on the pads the first time, he was, I mean, I put him maybe on the pads, or I think I got maybe 2 feet, the front feet on the pads, and he really wanted nothing. I mean, he was on them for 5 seconds and then was off, but it really was enough. It was enough. And, I was trying to overcome this, like, I wanted to show the owner.
It's tough, isn't it? You feel the pressure of wanting to perform and to, really show what but that short duration, it's so important to say it's okay that it's just a short period of time. And it is hard, because there is a pressure that people want to see, well, like, my horse didn't stand on it. Well, that's okay, because if he walked off of it, he wasn't in balance anyway. right? And I think that that's really important to realize, is that it's not about how long your horse stands on the pads. It's about what happens. And what happens may not be that he stands on the, you know, like I've had horses literally that never stood on the pad because they couldn't. But then we got an insight into what was going on with that horse, and it was very different, because we then said, well, what can you do, you know, and what is the story going on here? So you can use Surefoot as a way to really help you get to understand your horse and how the process of interacting with that horse. So this one who turned out, he was born very foot sensitive, and had dropped his owner a couple of times because he touched something with his feet and freaked out. And when I went to work with him, I spent 3 days and he never stood on a pad. But what she saw that I did was I always put myself in the position of protection. In other words, I didn't force him to look at the pad. I always put me between him and the pad. I'd stood on the pad, I touched it with my nose, I would offer and take it away, so that he learned, oops, sorry, that's my watering my trees. He learned to trust me, so that it became something else. It was recognizing that I had to earn the horse's trust before I could ever ask him to stand on something that to him was very, very difficult. And so, you know, sometimes the lesson isn't that my horse stands on the pad and sways like crazy. It's that, wow, this horse really has difficulties or needs another approach. And so I think it's important to keep an open mind about, you know, what's occurring in front of us, as opposed to what we think should happen. Does that make sense?
Exactly.
And it's not easy sometimes.
Yeah, it's not easy. Do you have a time limit that you put on?
So in the beginning, I want to keep the duration really short. Oh, okay, let's see if I can do this video now. We will try this. We'll see if I can get my screen share to work, because I've got it. I'm going to see if I can make this big. Now, I don't know why I have the pictures below, but it's okay. You can't see Jen's head. This is Heidi's horse, Frisco, and he's been on Surefoot pads many, many times. And what's so unique about him is just how much he sways and not steps off. And he's totally relaxed, and it's very intentional. And you can see Jen trying to sit as absolutely quietly as possible to just be a weight on his back. Now, when you have a horse sway a lot, you want to decrease your duration, because you're working the tiny postural muscles. In this case, you're working much more than tiny postural muscles. But if your horse is new to Surefoot, you want to keep the session short. It may, in some cases, the entire session was 5 minutes, with maybe standing on the pads, you know, a few, 10 seconds at a time. Once you kind of know how the horse is going to respond, and we knew this horse, we could allow him to stand on the pads for longer. But you really have to recognize that, and this is the same horse from behind. And as you can see, Heidi's pregnant in this video, which is why she is not on her horse. You can see this one with Heidi on the left-hand side, Carrie?
Yeah, I saw it, yeah.
Okay. So this is just watching this horse from behind. And when you think about just how much movement there is here, that's when, if you see a lot of sway, you're going to decrease duration. Now, if you notice the horse to the left, he's standing on a pair of hard pads, and he's standing in a rather braced position, but he's not doing any swaying whatsoever. So we could let him stay there a little longer because he's not swaying, versus, if the horse needs to walk off, you let them walk off, because the reason they walk off is one of 6 things: flies, fright, food, friends, follow, and in this case, you saw him walk off because he was done, finished. So flies, fright, food, friends, follow, finished. And you'll notice that what he did was he went straight back to the pads. He was like, that was awesome. Can we do it again? And there's our neck coming down. And this is one of the Criollos, super hot horse, not an easy ride. And he looks so chill here. And this is really not his typical manner of going, is it, Carrie?
Yeah, I mean, he toggles, right? He goes from, he's learned that long rein and nose to the ground is like very relaxing. And then it's really a struggle in the trot, which is where they train that behavior. It's where they train that sort of pee off kind of thing. And so he toggles between those. He can go pretty quickly to that, relax, but yes, he's not an easy ride.
No.
Not always the best ride. But yeah, we have several of these horses that have made, the Surefoot pads is my go-to 100%. And, I've kind of learned over time that it is difficult to spend a lot of time and work through some of these behaviors, and sometimes they never go away. And so we have learned that it's sometimes easier to, get horses that haven't had any of this really abusive training.
But you bring up a really great point that, we literally have had some horses where, the minute their foot touched the pad, they totally change and they stay. And then there are other horses where I've had horses that 4 years, they're still using Surefoot pads, still seeing improvement, but the damage that was done early on was done so early on that that's really ingrained in that horse. And so it takes a lot longer time, and it's never completely gone, but the horse has a lot of other choices. So the reactive patterns come out fewer and fewer, less and less frequently, because they have other choices. And the horse I'm thinking about most specifically is a Pasofino named Snip, who had wound up with broken ribs as a baby in the field. They didn't realize it. And then he went to a bad trainer, and that put a lot of pressure on him. And so, he's been a long-term project. And some of the horses there are, they can really show us a big change, but if they're put back in an environment that triggers them, they react and go back to their old pattern. And you can also take them out of that position and they can come back again. So, then you have to learn to manage what environments you're going to put them in, because there are certain environments that are just such a trigger. It's not fair to them to put them in that situation. So you might have to change their job or something like that. And then there's the horses that you can then use the Surefoot pads in the triggering environment and switch them and show them that there's another choice. So these are all possibilities and ways in which it's endless when you think about the environments and the different, it's really hard to talk about all the ways you can use Surefoot, because it's so portable. It can combine it with other techniques. It's easy to use, and it's worth a shot. I mean, we've even had horses stop colicking using Surefoot. Call your vet, pull out your pads, start putting them under their feet, because you're going to get a neurochemical release, which may help the stress and therefore bring the horse out of colic. I'm going to show you. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to remind you about Artemis, who, was a really interesting case too, where she went from being really high to, a complete behavioral change. And then remember the moment that the rope came out.
Oh yeah.
That, it was that trigger for her. So, but I will say she has also got improved quite a bit over these.
Great. And it's breaking down those triggers and separating them, kind of teasing them apart so that you can address different aspects, and then gradually work back to combining it into something that she recognizes as a trigger, but now she has other choices. So this is in Fresco, this is Coloso. And this is when I said, the horse that never actually, I'll play that again because I just made it big. He just drug his toe over the pad and then yawned like crazy. And they had owned this horse. He was tope trained, and they had owned him for 2 years and never seen him yawn. And it's so interesting how he acknowledges the pad, right? He just puts his head down and realizes that that's what caused that, right? That response. And as you can see here, he's got the really dreamy eye, the closed eye. And he's just standing next to the pad at this point. So the effects of being on Surefoot pads can last. They don't have to be on the pad to have the effect. They can be near the pads once they recognize them and have influence. And this is true where we have somebody that's looking at heart rate variation and using Surefoot pads. And one of the things that she told me was she went out to measure her pony, do his heart rate and stuff. And she said, wow, it was already low. And I was like, well, did he see the pads when you came out? And she was like, well, yeah. So
They know them. They do. They see them from a mile away.
Yeah.
And they know. It's incredible. And that's one thing that I will say I've gotten much better at over time is the way that I offer the pads. Because as you said, they know which ones they want to be on. And you start to look and see the weight shift as to which foot they would like you to put on first. And, you know, even the way you lift the foot to put it on can make a difference for that horse too. So
Yep.
I've started to pay attention.
Yeah, because you can feel the tension in the leg or the lack thereof, whether it's heavy, light, free. But what's so interesting in this video, you think, oh, he's just looking for food. And then he just comes right over and rubs that pad and then positions himself for the other foot, right? So once they know that you're going to listen and you're going to offer them Surefoot, you really have to start paying attention because they will literally show you which foot, which pad, how long. I mean, it's so much fun, and it's a great opportunity for us to realize they are paying attention. That it's usually us that's not paying. We're thinking about dinner that night or what just happened at work, or, you know, I got to pick up the kids. And they're right there. They're right there paying attention the whole time. And we really need to become better observers. Yeah.
So true. So true.
Right. Well, thank you so much, Carrie. It's so great to see you. I have to say that this is really great to be able to visit with you because we won't be back this winter. But, you know, keep the faith and everything will get better here. And I think we can see the light at the end of the tunnel now. So I don't know. I have to decide whether I'll be able to keep doing the webinars once I start traveling again. I might have to cut them back to once a week or something. But we've got more planned.
Well, we could do them here. Then we'll do together.
We could do them there, absolutely. And I have some webinars planned for next week, and then after I think it's after the 18th. Let me just look at my calendar here. We're going to take a break. Yeah, so we have webinars through the 18th, and then we're going to take a break for the Christmas holiday, and we'll pick it back up in January. So just be sure to subscribe to the Surefoot Equine YouTube channel. You'll get a notification every time we put up another webinar, and have a fantastic weekend. I'm sure you will down there in Costa Rica, and it's going to be a beautiful weekend here in Virginia, so I'm looking forward to it. Oh, did you freeze?
Thank you so much.
All right, so thank you all for joining me, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, Carrie. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Wendy. So much fun visiting with you.
Say hi to everybody for me. Bye.
Oh, I will. Bye, Wendy.